Hello, flower friends. Look at this. Y'all, I could not leave this sitting over all by itself in the vase. I want to tell you the story about this in just a minute. How pretty is that? Oh my goodness, how pretty, pretty, pretty. So friends, it's Wednesday, and that means it is Ask a Flower Farmer, and it is your friend in flowers, Lisa Mason Ziegler, here to try to answer some of your questions. And the way this works, if you've never hooked up with me before, is that for about the next 30 minutes, you can post your questions down in that bubble with the question mark that's down at the bottom of your screen with your cut flower questions, whether it's about cut flower seed starting, business, flower farming, anything, right? Cool flowers, the whole enchilada, right? And I will do my best to answer them, but post them down in that bubble because that way I don't lose it as the stuff scrolls by here so fast because we get loaded up with people, right? And get your question posted early so I can actually get to it. So this was unplanned, but as I was pressing the button to go live, this guy was sitting here in a vase I'm in the studio here on the farm, and I have to tell you this guy's story. So this is ornamental kale. This is a cut flower kale, and it used to be probably about 10 inches longer than this, super tall. And we had grown this, to show on our Friday shopping show. And it did its job like way back, probably near Thanksgiving time. So that's like 5 or 6 weeks ago, right? So it hung around here in a bucket by itself for several weeks. And then the bucket went dry in the end of December. And then the holidays came. It literally sat in a bucket here, dry. It finally wilted. And then I decided when I was doing boot camp, one of my session on harvesting and conditioning for my flower farming students, I thought this will be a great example. Let's quick dip. He was limp as a noodle, y'all. I mean, limp as an overcooked noodle. And so I cut off about 2 inches off the stem, and I dipped this in quick dip. And I will tell you that these leaves are firmer now than they have ever been. But this beautiful thing is probably, so if we had it for the end of Thanksgiving, you do the math, and actually we had it for a couple weeks before that. This stem is like 2 months old. And I'm just here to tell you that flower conditioning products really work, Quick Dip being one of those. And it is absolutely amazing, but I thought he needed his day in the limelight there. So friends, I've got a couple things to show you while you guys get started. Please post your questions down in the bubble with the question mark, because as it gets pushed up, I will never be able to get back to that. So put it in the bubble. And while we're waiting for that, a star has been born here. And does anybody want to guess what these are? This is Eucalyptus polyanthemus. We start all of our eucalyptus. Can you see the little seedlings coming along? Eucalyptus is a dark colored seedling, and so they're really hard to see. That's why I'm showing to you like that, so you can see the sides of all those little stems. So eucalyptus is always one of the first seeds that we sow here on the farm, and it's just like Lanthus, y'all. It's not hard to get it to germinate. It's that it's a super slow grower, so it gives you every opportunity to kill it along the way. So we'll see how I actually do with that. And there's one other thing I just have to show you. Today on my sowing circle, I'm going to be, y'all see how beautiful? This is leaf lettuce. Isn't that gorgeous? We're going to harvest this today. Guess what's growing in? These are growing in the 3/4 inch soil block. Is that the most amazing testimony of how amazing the growing environment is in soil blocks? And this purely happened out of, we started the seed as a demonstration seed sowing. We just kept the seeds and let them grow. I was then going to plant them outside, but then we dove into low temperatures, and I thought, shoot, I'm just going to leave these in the tray and see if we can't grow them like microgreens. And y'all, it's amazing. So I'm going to harvest this today on the sowing circle, and then I'm going to put it back in the grow room and see if we can't get it to grow again. because we eat leaf lettuce every day here at this house. And I'm super excited about that. But I just thought this is an amazing testimony to the environment of soil blocks. Can y'all see in there? I mean, they are the small blocks. Pretty dadgum amazing. And so, all right, we're getting some questions down there. And I want to tell you one more thing before I jump into questions. Did y'all know that I have a membership called the Flower Farmer Club? And I'm telling you about this because it's where I find, I just absolutely love it, and I love what's happening over there. It's a membership that not only do we put a lot of content in there, but it's the community thing that's going on. It's the protected community. It's the community that has a perimeter around it so people can feel safe and trusted to do vulnerable things, which I know how scary it is to step out in business, to maybe make posts that you're not sure about, or to ask questions that you don't want to seem like a dummy. And there really are no dumb questions, y'all. But the Flower Farmer Club, you can actually comment club here to learn more about it. We just introduced a few weeks ago an annual membership, which means when you pay for it annually, you actually get 2 months free. And then you don't have to worry about it. And it's just full. I do a master class every month. I do the Flower Farmer Forum, which is a live Q&A where I answer everybody's questions, those submitted beforehand and during, and a mini training. We have the Bloomcast, which is a private podcast. And I really try to, that's my spot where I really feel like I need to help people be encouraged on this journey of starting a flower farming business, right? And there is just so much great stuff in there. And we haven't really promoted it very much. And we are going to be closing the doors here soon. So that's why I'm just throwing that fish out there. And so be sure to comment club if you're interested in that. And that's just a great place. And we have the weekly sow-in circle where I sow seeds and yammer on, and folks come in and they do their own. Members join me for that virtually, and a lot of them are sowing seeds at the same time I am. So it's really a great thing. So it's the Flower Farmer Club, and you can comment club here, and we'll DM you the link just to read more about it and to see all the cool stuff that's in there. All right, now we got some questions, y'all. All right. I have the wrong glasses on for reading. Stand by, y'all. These glasses are kind of glary, but they allow me to read. I forced tulips here in zone 4 during the winter, but I'm considering trying Lisianthus during the off season. Do you have any advice? When you say the off season, I'm not sure what you mean. And, the place, so I'm just trying to think, if you're talking about growing in greenhouses and hoop houses, that would definitely be a Stephen Gretel Adams question. Gretel will probably be hosting an Ask a Flower Farmer here in the coming months probably, but I know that's not helping you now. I don't know anything about growing in the off season because we grow everything out in the field. I do know that they would potentially need supplemental lighting if you're talking about growing them not during their regular season, and heat. So you got to make a lot of money from something to be able to invest all that, right? So I'm sorry, I cannot help you there. But Sunny Meadows Flower Farm, they're incredibly active on social media. They are our instructors for the grow and cut flowers in hoop and greenhouses. Steve and Gretel are phenomenal. They're experienced. They have like 19 houses, and they grow out in the field, and they grow gobs of Lisianthus and everything else, tulips. I don't know if you asked them a question on social if they'd be able to answer you or not, but that's where I would ask that question. If I have enough flowers to sell to local florists, how do I know the price per stem? I especially am looking for prices for sunflowers for this summer. So Joanne, there's a lot more. If you aren't familiar with where and how to get the prices, there's probably other things you may be missing. The worst thing that we can do when we're approaching other professional people is to not go in at least halfway prepared, meaning knowing what we're talking about, and pricing is at the top of that list. We have a workshop by Ellen Frost called Preparing to Sell to Florist. Ellen is a florist, and she addresses your availability list, pricing. In that course, I mean, I think it's $50 or something. Be the best $50 that you've spent if you're going to sell to florists, because the worst thing you can do is to go in and meet a florist that potentially was going to be a great customer and to be totally unprepared and unprofessional, and them to think, then they think, why would I pay this person market value for their flowers? They really don't know what they're doing. And it's not that you have to know everything, but there are some bottom line things you need to be versed on, and having market pricing is number one, and then the way you prepare your flowers. But that's what I would recommend to you, is to check out Ellen Frost's course, Preparing to Sell to Florist. That's like a deep dive 101 on getting in and actually doing it, and you will not be sorry. Is it too late to plant sweet peas in zone 8A? Well, funny you should ask that. So when you actually plant is really more, depends on your frost dates for this time of the year. The winter hardiness zone is really useful to plan from for fall. It only tells us what'll survive our winter. But we are actually starting sweet peas right now. We don't typically grow them in very early spring. I will tell you, it is possible. It'll really depend on your spring-like behaviors, because what happens for us, where I am, is we don't have much true spring weather. It goes straight into hot summer, and I'll tell you, when that happens to sweet peas, they get really, really short, and they get really loaded with pests and diseases. But our well-established ones that were fall planted, which is what you should do for this coming fall, is they're so well established, they hit the ground running earlier, so they are much stronger to face that. So certainly you can try it, but this is what I tell people now. That's not my first choice, and you just have to write it down somewhere. I didn't plant them at the right time. So when it goes wrong, if it does, you'll realize it's not because you can't grow sweet peas where you live. It's because you didn't follow the timeline of the cool flower concept. And that's the timing of when you plant, which is half the battle, right? So you can try it, but just know it's an experiment. Where do I find Ellen Frost's course for sailing for florists? Okay, good question, Joanne. So if you comment, let's see, what word can I say? Shop here. That'll DM you in your direct messages here on Instagram our website. Our website is thegardenersworkshop.com. And once you get there, it's very clear, online courses. You can go there and just scroll down until you get, Ellen has 2 courses. You want the one Preparing to Sell to Florists. So it's thegardenersworkshop.com, or you can comment shop here and we'll DM you the link to thegardenersworkshop.com, and that will get you to where that is. Can you grow Lisianthus in soil blocks? That is another great question. So, I did grow Lisianthus in soil blocks, but we, of course, buy plugs now because it's just better for a lot of different reasons. But Lisianthus, just like Eucalyptus that I was showing you earlier, is a very slow grower. It takes 12 to 16 weeks of growing indoors to get a seedling that is about 1.5 inches tall. There's a lot of ways to kill that seedling over that long length of time, right? And then you put them in soil blocks, which I find that many people, not everybody, many people struggle with their watering chores on them, of really creating the right environment, that they water in the morning and then they dry out and they're dry the next morning, because overwatering Lisianthus will definitely kill it. But yes, you can do it. There are people doing it. And it's just that there's a super slow grow. I don't find, so with Eucalyptus, we obviously started it in soil blocks, right? I don't grow a lot of Eucalyptus, so we actually bump them up to the 2-inch block, which is a little bit laborious, but it grows amazing transplants and lets us have the biggest one possible as early as possible. But you don't need to do that with Lisianthus necessarily. So yes, it is definitely possible. You just need to really be on your A game for watering. Which flow rate do you use for drip irrigation in general? What flow rate? I really quite understand what you're asking, but let me give you the simple answer that I give to all of my students. I don't really figure out a whole lot about irrigation. I rely on my supplier. This is when you don't need to know you need to know some information, which they actually tell you on their websites. What are those things, the pressure and the flow. You need to have those two pieces of information to know which irrigation product you need, and they are there to support and help you figure that out. And that's what I do. I don't spend hours perusing their different products. There's several different T-tapes, that kind of thing, and how long your beds are and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to know that, because what you soon learn if you're trying to become a flower farmer, or you are a flower farmer, there is far more significant things that you need to focus on that only you can focus on. Irrigation questions, you need to be asking your irrigation vendor. And the two that I recommend to people, and I'm sure there's others, but on the West Coast, and they're close of, is DripWorks, dripworks.com. Love them. Their tutorials are great. Their service is great. I have bought from them since the beginning of my career 28 years ago. And the one on the East Coast is berryhill.com. And both of them sell basically the same thing. It's just wherever you live closest would mean less shipping. And I totally lean on them. Do you start it in 2-inch soil blocks or the mini? If you're talking about Lisianthus, definitely the small block. It is very difficult to create a uniform environment in a large mass of soil, meaning warmth and moisture-wise, when there's just a tiny little seed on top. We don't put anything in the big block except either big seeds or bumping up a transplant that already has roots vigorously growing. So we start in the 3/4 inch block. I'm in zone 10A. I want to order plugs, but they won't get delivered until March. And I most have to be in the ground 2 weeks before my last frost date. That is January 27th. I don't have the proper equipment to grow cool flowers. What can I do? So, Jenny, if you're talking about, I'm sorry, you're not Jenny. Blooms with, sorry, trying to figure out what your name is. So if you're talking about cool flowers, you've missed the window. And I would say to you, if you're in 10A and that sounds like warm season, tender annual growing mecca to me, I would say you've missed your opportunity for this year. And if you're going to be ordering plugs, then you need to mark on your calendar for this coming fall, or actually you want to get your plugs or have your transplants ready to go in the ground about 6 to 8 weeks before your lowest temperature of the season for you, because I'm pretty sure you don't get a frost, right? And so I would say I would skip the cool flowers because it will not be long, and you will be ready to plant warm season tender annual, so you've probably missed your window. And that's okay. And so often, and we have to stop looking over our shoulder and saying, I'm late, I'm behind. My book, The Cut Flower Handbook, oh my gosh, y'all, I talk about this a lot. It's like if you just realize you're not late and you're not behind, you just start doing today what needs to be done today, and that gets you on track to move forward from where you are. And if you're going to be a commercial grower, if anybody's aspiring to do that, you've got to get in that mindset, or you will be frustrated, upset, worried, and concerned all the time. And that just doesn't work, right? How do you harden off the early spring planting seedlings? What a great question. I've been asked that several times in the last few weeks. So first off, very early spring plantings always are hooped and row covered pretty immediately, as soon as they go to the garden. If we plant in the morning, that afternoon they're hooping and row covering, or actually the hoops are usually installed. Somebody's dragging out the row covers and the bags to cover those beds. So that creates a really protected environment. So hardening off is not as extreme as it is like in warm season. So I do have a really great setup for hardening off out here on my carport. The carport is protected from overhead direct sunlight, although it gets it from morning and afternoon from both ends of the carport, and it protects it from wind. I have done every wrong thing ever known to mankind as far as seed starting. I have left trays and trays and trays of little soil blocks, full mature plants ready to go to the field, outside on the carport, and it's gone down to 18 degrees. It's like totally assuming I'd killed them. Not, it's like I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying they are so much more hardy and just able to resist stuff that we are just so worried about. So if you have a safe hardening off spot, just meaning they won't get rained on from overhead, you can follow your regular hardening off steps and get them out there for 7 days before they go to the garden. But because we cover them immediately, we shorten that time up sometimes. And if the labor is right here, if it's a day that Bobo's here and they haven't really been out there and they're still here in my grow room, we have been known to take them straight from the grow room right out to the field, but they're hooped and covered. That's the difference. Very efficient and protected in that way. So that's what we do. Would never do that with warm season stuff, ever, ever, ever. How big are eucalyptus seeds? I can't tell if I have a seed. I can't tell if I have seeds in the packet or if it's dirt and dust from the actual seeds. So I sowed these last week. I think they're big enough for you to recognize them. So if you opened a brand new pack of seeds, we use that little aluminum seed pan that we dump our seeds into, and you can actually do a search engine and say, what do eucalyptus seeds look like? And then once you get there, you can even say, how big are they? It usually a lot of times will show you an image that has, a penny or something next to it so you can actually tell. They're pretty small, but I would not say they are not as small as digitalis, which looks like dust if you ask me. Hi, I'm from India where we have to import seeds from outside, so it's very expensive. Any alternatives? I would say I have no idea about any alternatives. Growing your own seed is far more difficult than what people want to think. And then saving seed is a whole nother, ball of wax. So no, I would say, I would say order large orders at one time. I know that's when we used to import seeds from England, which we don't do anymore for other reasons, but it was very expensive too. You just want one box of seeds to come. So it goes through security and, all of your agricultural stuff. And anyway, so no, I'm sorry. I don't have any real tips for you on that, except I understand your pain. If you're starting cool flowers inside, are there any seeds you don't put on the heat mat? And I talk about this, in the Cut Flower Handbook, which I don't have. Oh, here's one. The Cut Flower Handbook, y'all. This is my book that came out last year, which has everything, every question I just about get every day about growing cut flowers is covered in this book. And there's 66 different flowers, 41 of which are cool flowers in here. And that's the kind of, we put in there really great tips on each and every different flower about how to grow them. And in a nutshell, I would say, everything goes on the heat mat, not everything, just about everything, for at least 24 hours. Those that I pop off after 24 hours, everybody in the umbel family, dill, daucus, and ami, and then we just put them over on a shelf, not necessarily with a grow light on because they're not sprouted yet, but they just like cooler conditions. But that warmth period just tells them to wake up and get out of dormancy, right? An atriplex probably. but yeah, so that's what, and this time of the year when it is cooler, naturally it's cold outside, so we keep the heat kind of low in this building. I mean, it's still warm in here. It's easy to provide those cooler conditions for some of those cool flowers. And I will tell you that air temperature on sprouting seeds is such a challenge for people. You just really have to figure out how you can control the temperature. I mean, that might be as much as having a door open or closed or putting drapes down to block the hot sun from coming in. You have to really get that down. That's one of the things, one of the master classes that's in the Flower Farmer Club is, we're always talking about sprouting seeds and all that kind of stuff. I did a master class on tending the seedlings. And because that's a part that people really, really skip. I mean, I talk to people all the time that are like, it's not that their seeds didn't sprout. Their seeds sprouted, but then they killed them. And it's just all about the conditions. And we just don't pay enough attention to that. And I just love doing that master class. And that's another thing that in the Flower Farmer Club, all of the events are library, meaning there are previous ones in there. Not that you're going to go back and watch them all, because who has, but you can if you want to. It's pretty awesome. So I encourage y'all to check that out. It's if you comment club here, we'll DM you the link, or you can just find it over at the Gardener's Workshop. Jen, do you have a year-long calendar to know when to order seeds, plugs, plants? That is a template. Hard to know what to look for when starting out. I missed ordering tulips, peonies, and dahlias last year. Well, if you're just starting out, Jenny, I'll just be very bold. I'm losing my filter as I get older. You have no business growing tulips as a new grower. I mean, it's difficult to grow tulips successfully. And actually make money at doing it, and especially until you have a lot of customers. And so I would say you didn't really miss. You might have actually won out on that. And peonies are always a great crop. Peonies and Lenten roses are the two perennials that I say once you know you're going to be doing this, to start adding some every year, because they're great landscape plants. So even if you're not flower farming, they'll benefit your actual home. But no, I in flower farming school, and in really both of my books, I talk about the big calendar, but the big calendar is filled out by you based on the information of you learning when you're supposed to plant stuff. That's another thing that's in the Cut Flower Handbook. There's actually places for you to write dates in. It's like, when is my window to plant warm season annuals? When is my window to plant cool flowers? And then it doesn't talk about perennials, but you could find out that information and then have that on your calendar. And so, again, those are what I tend to call, what do I want to say? We call them high-risk crops, not because there's anything wrong with them. It's because they're expensive, and you have to really kind of have some experience to grow them, and then you have to have customers to sell them to. And we support people every day that have spent so much money and bought the wrong ones, or didn't grow them right, or they all bloomed and they had no customers. The heartache, right? So there's a lot of great stuff to learn how to do all that stuff on before you start spending a lot of money on tulips, peonies, and dahlias. But there isn't a calendar. You kind of have to build that for yourself, get that information, have a central place to actually put that. If you plant Lenten rose in spring, will you get flowers the same year? Only if you buy Lenten roses. So hellebores are Lenten roses, and you can actually comment. I have a free webinar on growing them, cutting them, and all the things I do with them. Lent, L-E-N-T. You can comment that here, and we'll DM you the link to request the free webinar. And I just watched it again the other day, y'all. Every year I think, oh gosh, maybe that one's out, maybe I need to redo that. And then I watch it, I'm like, oh my gosh, so much great information. So comment Lent, and we will DM you the link to request that. We had thousands of requests for it last week, so don't miss out on that opportunity. So Lenten roses, hellebores, Typically, they're called Lent because they usually are blooming during the Lent season. And so the only way you're going to really get any flowers at that time of the year is if you buy really big plants that are already blooming when you buy them. So the optimal time to plant them is in the fall. That allows them to get really well established before they have to start working and growing stems and all that stuff. And I talk about in the webinar the two varieties that I grow, and I resist those new fancy gorgeous hybrids. But as a cut flower farmer, I just didn't have a market for it. And the ones that I grew freely reseed. They're super hardy, and when you plant them at the right time of the year, you can hardly go wrong with them. So check that out. So I don't know that you will get them this year. All right, so I'm going to answer this one last question here. Soil blocking. I leave every Friday around noon and return home at noon on Sunday. Is it possible to leave my soil blocks for those 24 hours? Well, that's more like 48 hours, not 24 hours. And that's tough, you know. I mean, especially it depends on the stage that your seedlings are in. If you're sprouting seedlings, they'll definitely be dried out, and that if your seed is cracking and then it gets totally dried out, I mean, the seedling may abort, you know, and not ever restart, breaking dormancy and sprouting. So I don't know what to tell you about that, except I'd be afraid. 48 hours is a long time. I have definitely done that to my grow room with mature plants in there and overwatered before I left them, worried about overwatering them, and then coming back to find them all laying down. And most of them resurrected, but not all of them, but that is very stressful for seedlings. And if there's one thing I have learned through all these years, the early life of your seedlings definitely contribute major to how your plant performs later on. You might not realize that, but it is very, very true. Same in dogs, y'all. The first 7 late weeks of life really rolls up how they're going to be for the rest of their life. And there's not much you can do to change and overcome that, except a lot of CPR kind of stuff. And why do that? So maybe find a babysitter. Maybe. All right, friends, I'm wrapping it up. This Friday on the Shop and Show at 12 noon, inside my phone app, the phone app shop, I'm doing make your own blocking mix for soil blocking, and we're doing soil blocking. I mean, it's everything seed starting around here right now, right? And check out the posts. I just posted reels today showing Bobo sowing seeds here on the farm. And I hope you'll give me a follow here on Instagram. And if you would like to get the phone app, it's free. Either visit your phone's app store, search Gardener's Workshop. We have 2 phone apps. We have a shopping app, which is where the live show happens, and you can shop in there anytime. And in that phone app, seed packet only orders ship for free, y'all. That's really a great bonus. We have a second new app now, and it's called Learn. And in the Learn app, first off, for downloading it, there's a free course in there for you. It's how I built that trellis here on my farm, that long 50-foot long trellis. But if you're a member of my community, that's how you would access it. And if you have any of our online courses and you'd use the same email for all that, it will all be in one place. So you can find that on your phone's app store. Hope to see you Friday inside the show at 12 noon because I have a great giveaway, as always, in that show. All right, friends. I will see you on Friday. Ciao.